In the deep forests of Sweden, near the ancient town of Uppsala, there's a family that has held the same land for over 30 generations. The Ericssons. They've farmed, hunted, and prospered, but they've also carried a secret. A genetic legacy from an ancestor who was one of Odin's own warriors, a berserker. This fury doesn't surface in every generation. Sometimes it sleeps for decades, but it's always there, waiting for the right descendant. In 2018, it awoke in 16-year-old Anders Ericsson, the first berserker in 5 generations. This is his story, a tale of inherited rage, a war god's will, and a boy's desperate fight to remain human while his blood screams for violence. Anders had always been a quiet, studious kid. He was close to his family, good at school, and showed no trace of the family curse. His grandfather had been the last one to bear it, learning to control the rage, but only just. He'd passed down warnings. Watch for unexplained anger, unnatural strength, a thirst for violence. If they appeared, get help immediately. The family had connections, experts who could help manage it. But with Anders, there was nothing. The family began to hope the curse had finally faded away. They were wrong. It began on a normal school day in November. Anders got into a trivial argument with another student over a borrowed pen. The other kid was rude, dismissive. Anders felt a flicker of anger, which was normal. But this anger didn't fade. It grew, expanded, and filled every part of him. He grabbed the other student and slammed him against a locker with strength he never knew he possessed. The metal door dented. The student cried out. Teachers rushed in, pulling a stunned Anders away. He'd never been violent before. Mortified, he apologized, unable to explain what had just happened. When his parents heard, they were deeply concerned. But when his grandfather heard, he came to visit immediately. He looked at Anders, his eyes searching, asking about the anger. Anders described it as a fire in his blood, like something ancient waking up inside him. His grandfather's face went pale. He recognized the signs. The curse was active. Anders was the new descendant. He made a call to Dr. Sven Lindquist, a psychologist and scholar of Norse traditions, whose family had served the Ericssons for generations, helping them manage the curse. Dr. Lindquist came at once, confirmed their fears, and delivered the verdict. The berserker blood was waking. They had maybe a month before it fully manifested, before Anders lost control completely. Dr. Lindquist explained that this wasn't just a psychological issue. It was spiritual, genetic, a form of ancient magic. Anders' ancestor, one of Odin's chosen, had returned from battle with the berserker fury still inside him, passing it down through his children. Over generations, it had diluted, but now it had concentrated in Anders, making him the most powerful descendant in a century. He would be unstoppable in his rage, but also uncontrollable, a danger to everyone, including his own family. He was given 2 paths. The first was suppression. Through intense meditation, rituals, and psychological training, he could learn to contain the rage and live a relatively normal life. It would be a constant, exhausting struggle. The second path was to embrace it, to accept what he was and become a modern berserker. He could channel the fury, using it in controlled environments like the military or law enforcement, where his aggression could serve a purpose. This path meant accepting his nature, not fighting it. Anders chose the first path. He didn't want to be violent. He wanted to be himself. Dr. Lindquist began the training. Breathing exercises, meditation, calming rituals. And for a few weeks, it seemed to work. Anders learned to feel the anger building and step away, to let it pass. His family felt a wave of relief. He was managing it, maybe even better than his grandfather had. They started to believe he might just be okay. Then came the attack. Walking home through the forest in early December, a shortcut he'd taken 1,000 times, Anders was confronted by a disturbed, paranoid man. The man had a knife and accused Anders of following him. Anders tried to de-escalate, to calm him down, but the man lunged, slashing Anders's arm. The deep cut, the sight of his own blood, the sudden pain, it was the trigger. All of Dr. Lindquist's training vanished in an instant. The Berserker rage exploded, consuming everything. Thought, fear, control, all gone. Only fury remained. Anders disarmed the man, broke his arm, and just kept hitting. He couldn't stop. It was something primal, ancient, taking over completely. His grandfather, who had come looking for him, found him standing over the unconscious man, his eyes wild, not quite human. He recognized the Berserker state from his own past. Slowly, softly, he called Anders's name, reminding him of who he was, of his family. Gradually, the rage receded. Anders looked down at what he'd done and broke down, sobbing. The man survived, but barely. The police investigated. Since the man had attacked first with a knife, the charges against Anders were dropped. It was ruled self-defense. But Anders knew the truth. He knew he'd gone too far. And the most terrifying part? A part of him had loved it. The power, the violence. The Berserker blood wasn't just defensive. It was hungry. He realized then that suppression would never work. The curse was too strong. He went to Dr. Lindquist and told him he was ready for the second path. He would embrace what he was. Dr. Lindquist wasn't surprised. Suppression rarely worked for the strong ones. His own grandfather had tried and failed, eventually hurting people he cared about. Embracing it was the honest path. So the new training began. Not suppression, but cultivation. Anders learned to call the rage on purpose, to direct it, to use it as a weapon. He trained in combat, preparing for a life in the military, a life where his violence could be sanctioned and purposeful. But the gods had other plans. One night, while Anders was training in the forest, a visitor appeared. An old man with one eye, a gray beard, and a wide-brimmed hat. He watched Anders for a while, nodding in approval. Then he introduced himself. He was Odin, the All-Father, the creator of the Berserkers. He had been watching the Eriksson line for generations, waiting for a descendant strong enough to be worthy of his attention. Anders was that descendant, the strongest in centuries. And Odin had an offer. The Berserker blood, he explained, was his gift, but it had been weakened by mortal lineage. Odin could restore it, make Anders a true Berserker of old, granting him the full sacred power of the Fury. He would feel no pain, no fear, a champion for Odin in the modern world. All Anders had to do was swear an oath and become his warrior, completely. Anders hesitated. "What's the cost?" he asked. Odin smiled. The cost was peace. Once fully awakened, the Berserker blood would demand constant violence. Anders would have to fight, to kill, to satisfy the rage. He could choose his battles, but he could never again choose not to fight. He would be a warrior forever. Anders thought of the normal life he dreamed of, his family, his future. All of it would be gone. He would be a living weapon in a world that would fear and hunt him. But then he thought of the alternative, a lifetime of fear, of fighting himself, of hurting people by accident. Odin's offer was honest. It was a clear path, a purpose. It was a chance to become what he was truly meant to be. This was his destiny, laid bare by a god. What would you choose? Thank you for watching. If you're fascinated by mythology brought to life, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories like this. See you next time, and good night.